Welcome along to this week's Champion Sports Chat podcast. It's the first of two shows coming your way this week. Details of the second in just a few minutes. We're going to get straight into it though. We've got quite a lot to get through on this week's show, and we'll start with a little bit of a mixture of football and hurling, I guess. I spoke to Corofin's Jamie Malone, the 2019 All-Star Football nominee, telling me all about a fundraiser for CF being organised by the North Clare Club. It incorporates Mullaghmore, footballs, hurleys and schlitters. Jamie explained all about it.
I suppose over the last couple of weeks there's been clubs up and down Ireland that have been running great fundraisers, and people have been very generous, and it's great to see and read about them things and great charities that are benefiting from them. And we're organising our own one at the minute, trying to raise money for the local branch of the Cystic Fibrosis Ireland charity, which is TLC for CF, which caters for the Tipperary, Limerick and Clare areas. And yeah, it's a unique one to us in Corofin, I suppose. We're incorporating Mullaghmore into it, and in a couple of weeks' time we're getting 50 members of the club between management and players from adult level to climb Mullaghmore in Kilnaboy and 50 cents. I think we might even have a couple more than 50, but 50 cents would equal 9,000 metres, which just puts us above Everest as well. So that's what we're climbing Mount Everest.
Right, and had you much trouble in getting lads to sign up for that, because it sounds like quite an undertaking?
Yeah, it was actually brilliant. Like our management really that kind of had the idea of doing something sort of Cullum Clancy and Jeff O'Sullivan said that might be an idea to try and get something going, and Cullum had the idea of incorporating Mullaghmore, and then I think it was a Friday evening he said something was mentioned about it, and then the players kind of took it up from there, and we said we go ahead and organise it, and that was Friday evening, and by Saturday evening, Sunday morning, I had a list of 50 names that had volunteered and were willing to go ahead with the challenge. So like it was a great response really from people within the club, and I suppose it gives us a chance, it gives us a chance to come together and have something to work towards over the next few weeks as a group, without having like training and matches that we usually do this time of year. And then I suppose we get involved in the community as well, and get a relationship with supporters that we might have usually this time of the year and things like that.
Yeah, it ties in as well, I think, with what a lot of people have been kind of finding, that even within your own locality, you may not have been aware or may not have engaged with your local amenities as much. And obviously Mullaghmore is this iconic venue, so I guess for Corofin to have that and to bring more awareness of it is another bonus as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think people are really realising that what is on their doorstep, and we're lucky in Corofin to have the beautiful scenery up around there, and you see a lot of people have been venturing that way from around the parish over the last number of weeks, and yeah, hopefully when things get back to a bit more normal, people won't forget about it and keep exploring and keep supporting local and things like that.
Yeah, I'd say there's a few lads signing up that may not have done a whole pile in the last couple of months, is there?
I don't know, like it's hard to know how things are going. We're trying our best to keep lads interested and active, and we're doing a few Zoom workouts within ourselves, and just try and keep in touch as much as anything else. But look, hopefully lads, there won't be too many injuries or lads backing out halfway up the mountain. Hopefully lads will be in some sort of, they've got plenty of notice anyway, so they can do a bit of training between now and a couple of weeks' time, get themselves ready.
Yeah, and the CF charity, obviously one that has a very special place, I think, for a lot of Clare people as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's tough for people, it's tough for their families and their friends. Even in our own club, the idea was put out there to do something for a charity, and then it was one of our players, Joe Cooney, who mentioned the CF charity, and everyone was on board with that. One of our players, Killian Clancy, he plays hurling football for us, and he is a sufferer of CF, but like he's one of our most popular players within our own group and within the club. He's an amazing guy. He's a super attitude to his sport and to his life. it's brilliant, very admirable. And at this time, I suppose it's tough for him and all sufferers that the isolation that they have to get on with at the minute. It's not easy, but it's a great charity. There's a lot of great work, and Bros and Corofin, within both the club and the community, it has a special place for the club and community for us. Absolutely.
Tell me, how are you finding the whole lockdown experience?
It's something different. It's strange the way things are, but I just try to keep myself busy as best I can, keep positive as much as I can. Some parts of it have been tough, I suppose, but some parts have been grand. It's nice to slow down sometimes and reflect on things before you see where you can spend your time probably best and things like that. It's great. I don't mind too much being at home now. I was away for a while, so it's alright being at home for now. Trying to keep busy. But everyone's in the same boat, and everyone's saying, well, we're all in this together. But I suppose, you're not. I don't see there's not too much that I'm missing out on at the minute, because I suppose things are the same for everyone. But I'm trying my best to keep positive and keep busy.
Yeah, because I suppose you would have been used to, and I was talking to Keelan Sexton a couple of weeks ago, that kind of inter-county football training routine where, your week was nearly mapped out for you, and you kind of knew what was coming on a Saturday morning or on a Tuesday evening or whatever. So, that can often take a little bit of adjusting as well.
Yeah, it's different, and I'm still trying to train away and do fitness work and ball work as well, but it is different, and it's kind of just nice but as well that you're kind of training to yourself. You train in your own time. You can plan out your week that suits you as best, and you can juggle around times and things like. Whereas usually when I was training with Clare, it was very mapped out. These are the times, these are the amount of hours that you were giving up. And so a lot of time it wasn't actual training that lads would find tough. It was probably the amount of hours that was went to travelling and set times and not being able to balance things as you would have wanted within different things. But now, you have that bit more freedom to say, I go for whatever training session this evening, or I might go tomorrow morning and things like that. Or I can take my break when it best suits me and things like that. So when you're training for yourself, I suppose it is, it's a bit more enjoyable. So it's something different. So getting used to it over the last few weeks.
Yeah, and I suppose there's maybe a contrast in how you spent the first couple of months of this year compared to how you spent the last few months of last year. I know you headed off on your travels. I'd say that was a brilliant experience.
Yeah, definitely different, something different. Yeah, I was away for 5 months and I had a great time. I got to meet a lot of very good people and experience a lot of very cool things and places. So I had away with two of my mates, and we spent just over 3 months heading around Southeast Asia. And then I was in Australia then for 7 weeks. So I got to catch up with some friends that have moved there and are living there. And then also got to do a bit of travelling around Australia then for 3 or 4 weeks. So very enjoyable. While the going was good. I suppose things are grounded now for the minute. But we'll see. We'll see things go over the next few months. See where we are.
Yeah, because you would have had quite a busy schedule. I know you've been involved in inter-county squads from underage right through to senior. This is probably the first chance you had, I'd imagine, in those years to just kind of maybe to switch off maybe and kind of just maybe take a step away from that world.
Yeah, it was different, right? I suppose when I was away, there was no mention of GAA, there was no watching it, there was no listening to it, reading about it, so I kind of switched off from it altogether for a while. I suppose in February when the league got going again, it was keeping in touch with one or two lads who were playing and wishing them luck and just watching out for the results and things like that. And now since I've been home, it's kind of strange. I don't know. I'm not involved in the squad, but I suppose it's easier to. It's not really real, because it's not ongoing at the minute. There's no matches that I'm missing out on playing, or the training is halted and stuff. So, it's a new experience again. GAA, something that I love and has been a huge thing in my life for nearly all of it. But then again, there's times I suppose it's hard to switch off from that and look at other things and experience new things in life as well.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, maybe it sounds cliche to ask it, but does time away from it kind of give you a greater appreciation of it when you do get back to it?
Yeah, in a way, it's like I've enjoyed the break from it as well. Like, I suppose it would be. I would think to myself that it'd be different if we were in the height of championship now, and the lads that hopefully after winning the quarter final, we're looking forward to a semi-final and stuff like that with Clare. And I was kind of looking on at that. Maybe that's I don't know how that feeling might hit me differently. I don't know, but when it's all halted at the minute, like it is something that you definitely miss. Like every player like up in Malone Island, he's probably missing out at the minute. Even just the meeting lads and the togetherness and the crack you'd have with them, as well as the competitiveness of it. But yeah, everyone is looking forward to getting back. But it is what it is for now.
Yeah, but as you said, you're focused now on this climb up Mullaghmore. So, I even for people that wouldn't be taking part, I'd imagine this is going to be a massive community event that, fellas can maybe stand at the bottom and perhaps give their own commentary on what's going on up ahead of them.
Yeah, like when it comes down to on Saturday, June 6th, today we're doing it. We'll be there from early morning to probably 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, like going up in smaller groups. So we'll be there for the day. Hopefully people can call up and encourage us and things like that, and get involved in any way that they can. Obviously, we've had a great start to the donations and collecting the money. It's been greatly received by everyone, so thanks to all the contributors, and hopefully we'll keep it going up the next 2.5 weeks so that we can raise as much money as we can for a great cause.
Where can people donate?
Yeah, just donate. Like we have an online platform at the minute, a GoFundMe page. It's shared across the club's Facebook and Twitter pages, shared across all the players' Facebook, Twitter, Instagram pages. So it's there for you online. If someone doesn't have access, or maybe they prefer not to contribute online, then by contacting any of the players in Corofin, we'll be able to help you out. We'll sort something out with you. Whether we can do it online for you, or they can donate money to themselves.
Corofin's Jamie Malone there, and as you said, you can follow all those links if you want to donate to what is quite a worthy cause. Now, a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty still surrounding the future of the 2020 GAA Championships, be that club or county. In the last week or so, the Clare GAA executive held a remote meeting to discuss what the options might be going forward. I spoke to Clare GAA chairman Joe Cooney to find out the latest.
We did have the officers meeting last Wednesday night. Wednesday evening. Again, the discussion is, unfortunately, our hands are tied at the moment. We are all well aware of the government and HSE guidelines. We're all well aware of the statement from Croke Park of about 2 to 3 weeks ago. And as of the moment, unfortunately, nothing has changed from that statement. We have been told that there's going to be no movement or no change until phase 4 of the restrictions have been lifted, which is on July the 20th, and we'll see what's going to be the outcome and what restrictions are lifted at that stage.
Right, and I guess that the GAA have kind of said that they're going to prioritise probably the club over the county, so I suppose that'll probably be the first action back.
Well, we have been in contact with Croke Park. There have been conference meetings with Croke Park, conference calls with Croke Park over the last number of weeks. And what they are saying to us at the moment, they would be looking at playing club fixtures before the inter-county fixtures. That's if there's games going ahead in 2020.
Yeah, so I suppose maybe in a lot of ways, I suppose people I know will have a very changed championship, but from a Clare perspective, I suppose we hadn't kind of thought about championship as such until August anyway, so, other than having to change the format, it may not upset things too much, will it?
Well, again, Derek, as you said, we probably definitely have to look at the format And again, we'll probably going to have a shorter space of time to run the championship if they are going ahead with an inter-county championship after the club championship. So again, this will be in discussion with the clubs, as you know yourself. And then we have a structure in place. So the only way we can change that structure is by sitting down with the clubs when we're allowed to sit with the clubs and have a discussion with them as regards changing the structure and what way we'll run our competitions for 2020 if there is competitions going ahead.
Yeah, so it'll be another couple of phases, I suppose, before you can hold a board meeting, or would it be considered maybe to hold one digitally, or what's the thing on that?
We'll be hoping maybe to hold the board meeting, hoping now, again, with a direction from Croke Park, and as you know, the guidelines this year, we have to adhere to the guidelines, so it probably would be a conference call we'll be doing, but we'll be hoping, if possible, after phase 3, that we might have a better idea how things are progressing, what amount of restrictions are going to be lifted, and what is happening as regards the social distancing. So hopefully we'll be able to have a meeting in July. But again, Derek, no guarantee, and again, we have to go by the guidelines of Croke Park as well, and they are laying down the law to us as what way we progress forward.
Yeah, is there financial worries about all this, Joe? That, there's obviously gate receipts being lost, and with Croke Park revenue down, I suppose if there's no full inter-county, those grants won't be there. I mean, that'll probably have a big impact and a very different book that'll be outlined if there is a 2020 AGM.
There is serious financial concerns, and again, you're hitting the nail on the head there. No match has been played, no gates receipts at either inter-county or inter-club, but Croke Park, the GAA authority, Croke Park, Munster Council and county boards and clubs who are suffering at the moment because of the restrictions. There's lashes that have been cancelled, investors' draws have been cancelled, and there will be big funding concerns going into the future as regards what's going on at the moment. But again, at all time, we have to take the health and safety of our players, our supporters and our management into consideration, and that is vital as well. But definitely there is going to be serious financial consequences after this.
I suppose in some respects, though, if there is no inter-county, or if there is a limited inter-county, would I suppose the expenses probably wouldn't be what they were to sustain a 9 or 10 month campaign as they would have had in recent times. Would that be some small kind of compensation, do you think?
Look, to be definitely help, and we'd be all hopeful that competitions would go ahead for the good of the players as well, in fairness. And both of us know, and we all know in this county and in this country, young people are made to get out and play the games, but unfortunately because of the restrictions that they can't do it. And even if we could get playing some competitions later in the year, I think it would be a big bonus and a big plus. It would help the finance side of it, but not near what would have helped it if our full calendar, our full programme of games had gone ahead over the last number of months, as we're well aware. Our questions about the cool camps, and again we have been in discussion with Croke Park as regards the cool camps, and as of the moment no decision has been made whether they're going ahead or not going ahead, but we have been led to believe a decision has been made in the first week of June. It's either yes or no then, but at the moment they're not postponed or they're not been said they're going ahead. But the first week of June, we believe a decision has been made on the cool camps, and that's important for clubs and young people that be aware of whether they're going ahead or not. So at the moment there's no call made on it.
Chairman of Clare GAA, Joe Cooney there. Finishing up this week's part 1 of this week's podcast, we're talking to the man who has brought handball success to the county along with Colin Crehan in the last couple of years. That of course is Scariff and Tuamgraney's Diarmaid Nash. A lot of uncertainty surrounding the handball world as well. Diarmaid, as you will hear, is of the opinion that the doubles championship may not be going ahead. It's one of course that's quite close to his heart because he has won the last 2 All-Ireland championships alongside Crehan. He spoke to me about how the whole COVID-19 experience has been for him.
Like obviously the inter-county season for hurling and football was like at the league stage, whatever. Like I had lost like the All-Ireland semi-final, so basically the All-Ireland, like the biggest game of the year basically was called off in handball, like in terms of like the All-Ireland singles final. It was supposed to be on in 2 weeks basically before the lockdown happened, and it got obviously put back or whatever. Now, whether or not it will be played this year, I don't actually know. So obviously the doubles championship, that's at the moment on hold as well. It's basically, from what talking to some of the guys in Croke Park that have been in touch. You see, technically we should be you would think there's only 2 of us maximum, maybe 4 of us in a court, so the number of people that would kind of get infected would be less or whatever. But it is a fairly enclosed space, and it's also it's a court, so there's nowhere really for the and it's there's no really for the kind of you're kind of breathing in everyone else's air, or kind of I suppose is the way to describe it, but or it's an enclosed space, yeah. So when they don't actually know, they kind of need. So we do fall under the GAA's kind of rule book. So I think the handball have been looking for the GAA to kind of see could we go back or whatever. But I mean, it'd be fine for me. I could kind of play a game, go home, and kind of self-isolate almost for 2 weeks or whatever. It's not a big deal. But there's other people that say they have families and stuff that wouldn't be able to do that. And it's just not really feasible, I think, at the moment. But yeah, as in also ours is technically a non-contact sport, but it's non-contact in the same way that basketball is non-contact. There's still a bit of touching, in terms of you're not actually allowed to touch someone else, but you're allowed to get as close as reasonably possible or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just you're always kind of fighting for position, I suppose, is the best way of describing it. But there's no actual dates being set out. I mean, there's the other problem with handball is that there's other forms of handball, basically, which I don't really play, but 40 by 20 is the kind of the smaller, we call it the blue ribbon run or whatever, the most kind of well known or most well played. There are other forms, in tennis kind of thing, where you have different kind of seasons. So technically, our season should have ended there in the end of April, start of May. So whether or not, I know they've scrapped some of the other ones because they just wouldn't be deemed as important or whatever, but I think you could have a case where I think it probably will get played, but whether it'll be played in let's say the kind of finals, whether it'll be played in October, November, I'm not sure, basically, is the short answer. There is a chance that they might just kind of scrap, let's say, the doubles or whatever for the 2020 season. Given that, I mean, whenever about 2 guys in a court, 4 guys, you're really on top of each other. You know what I mean? Because it's just, yeah. It's when I say it's obviously the court is whatever length, but in general, you're all kind of at the very front of the court for the majority of the game, if you know what I mean. So, it's a mess. It's the short answer, and I don't know what's going to happen really, but. They are technically, we're technically waiting for. They're waiting for sign off from the GAA to see. Basically, I mean, they're not going to do anything until John Horn or whoever gives the say so that he can, or Tom Ryan or whatever. They kind of say, "Oh yeah, you can go back and play." But I mean, my own perspective on the thing is that, I think. Waiting on a vaccine is kind of fairy dust stuff. Because I think you could be a long time waiting for a vaccine. Could be next summer. Could be, I don't know when. It could be safe to have a vaccine. I mean, there's no vaccine for AIDS or HIV and that was back in the 80s and stuff. And even now, the flu vaccine, I think only 75% of people that actually works for. So, I don't know if hypothetically, let's say there's no vaccine by next May. Do you think and let's say the GAA didn't have an intercounty championship in 2020, are you trying to tell me that they wouldn't have one in 2021? I find it hard to believe, but that they'd write off 2 years basically without a championship. So I think it could be a case that we will at some stage just kind of have to get back to, or try and get back to playing, I suppose is the way to describe it. Or not even playing, but people have to go back to work and stuff, and there's only so long I guess we can stay in lockdown is probably the way to describe it, but we'll see. I guess it's hard to know what'll happen. And
is there anything that could be done, do you think? I mean, obviously there's an element of PPE in handball in that you have the goggles or whatever. Is there anything that could be developed from that point of view that might make it feasible, or is that just kind of needless missing?
I've seen these things about talk about lads wearing masks playing and stuff like that. That's not right. We do wear gloves, I guess. So I mean, technically, even if I did touch someone, I mean, I'm wearing a leather glove. So I don't know if that offers some protection. It's the breathing thing is the hard part, though. Like I think the main thing that'll have to happen, and this goes, I guess, for all, Jay, but like, would people have to get, like, I don't know, kind of tested before they go into a court or something, or tested before they go into the pitch? Like, I mean, I guess it's hard to know what happened. I mean, even just say for the club championships, basically, and I think, like, for them to go ahead, like, as in, how would that even work in terms of 15 guys going into a dressing room kind of thing, or would you not go into the dressing room? I'm not sure, but I mean, for handball, our goggles are like, I mean, basically all they do is kind of stop basically if you get hit by a ball, basically it'll bounce off them and all that kind of stuff, but they're not, when you say it's protective gear, I mean, like, the protection is limited, I suppose, you know what I mean? I guess the thing about handball is that it's, the number of players that play it is quite small, I suppose, and it's more, and you're not going to have a huge number of spectators, but the spectators are in on top of each other. I mean, I think what you could do, and what probably will happen, is if it is to come back, I mean, the games are already streamed live anyways, so you'll probably have no spectators, but you just have, like, the games basically on Facebook Live or whatever, like, you know what I mean, and you just have, it'll be like two guys going into a court and they don't meet anybody, they come tog to the game. So I mean, it could be done, but I suppose the issue is that, like, some of these guys are, working in the army, working as doctors, working as, I'm not just talking about handball, I'm talking about every GAA sport. I mean, some of these guys can't just like I can go home and work on my computer for the next 2 weeks, basically, it's not a big deal. But, like, it is a big deal, like, if you have to go back outside and meet people, you know what I mean? Or on the kind of front line. I'm kind of in the dark here. Like, it's all over the place, really, I suppose.
It sounds like you'll be more hopeful for the singles more so than the doubles.
Oh, I'd say the chances of the double chance of being on now are very, very slim. Unless, basically, it got to the stage where, you change tactics as a kind of a country, and kind of what I'm talking about there, kind of going back, kind of, basically trying to, like, for example, let's say if we're in lockdown for another couple of months, and economics start kind of coming into it then, and stuff like, where the government's like, well, okay, people can't stay locked up, we can't afford to keep paying out basically benefits and all that kind of stuff, and it got to the stage where, like, people would have to go back into the workforce, and then obviously people would get sick from this, you know what I mean, if there was more exposure to it, and you kind of build up a kind of a herd immunity kind of thing. I mean, if that was to happen, then you could probably go back and play, because I mean, you're as likely to get, walking on, or on the bus to work as you are, or drive, in work as you are on a handball court, obviously. But I mean, that would take a massive shift in kind of public, what's the word, kind of even perceptions and stuff. Like, I mean, I think it's, whatever about kind of professional players to get an amateur players to go play a sport, which is definitely non-essential, let's be honest, you know what I mean, as in, while it'd be nice to go play and stuff, and all the mental health and mental kind of benefits you get as much as physical, I mean, you can go for a run, like, your own, as opposed, you don't have to play a team sport basically to get your kicks, but yeah, so, like, I mean, and so until that shift happens, and when it will happen, I don't know. I wouldn't be as optimistic about others about getting this vaccine by October, anyways.
Alright, and from a training point of view, have you been tipping away yourself, or is it just a case of everybody hangs up the gloves for the moment? I'm kind of running and stuff. Have a bit of doing a lot of running actually, and then just kind of like we have a bit of a gym there at home and stuff, like, in terms of the brother has one in terms of, so I can do a bit that way. So physically, like, I'm grand, doing a bit alright, yeah. But in terms of handball, like, I haven't played in like 2 months. Obviously, I haven't played anybody, but I haven't, you can't get the course locked up and all that kind of stuff. So it's that's the other thing, I suppose, as well. I mean, like, for the guys that are in the All-Ireland final, I mean, it's going to be probably, let's say they do come, whenever it is on or whatever, it's going to be probably the worst All-Ireland final you've ever seen, because everyone will be so rusty, like, to be, like, it'll both players be out of form as such, and won't have been able to play, guys. So, and it's the same for the hurling and the football. I mean,
in ways it's a bit of a leveler because, it'll be kind of like, it's not like anyone will be coming in hot, I suppose is the way to describe it, you know what I mean? And you could be you could have favourites kind of turned up in their ass pretty quickly because just, shocks could happen if lads are undercooked or whatever. So, I mean, the other point to make about handball is that, in fairness, like, we don't really need a lot of time so let's say they decide in October, November, let's say, okay, things have changed, we're going to have a championship now. You could literally run the handball over in a couple of weekends because, I mean, technically, although it's not ideal, you could play you could play a couple of games per weekend. I mean, because you're not going to be able to, you're not going to be, your muscles might be sore, you're not going to get a belt, you know what I mean? Whereas in hurling and football, I mean, you can't really play 2 games, one on a Saturday, one on a Sunday, because, you get a belt on a Saturday, you could be sore till Wednesday, you know what I mean? So, whereas in handball, you could literally run it over, like, it could be over in 2 weeks, basically, you know what I mean? As in, if you really wanted to run it off really quickly, maybe they mightn't want to do that, but, I mean, we're not, the time issue, like, we can probably fit in a championship in a really, really short period of time. We regularly have, weekend tournaments where you have 3 and 4 games, and obviously they're a bit shorter, but and it wouldn't be ideal, but it could be done, I suppose, if, where there's a will, there's a way. But I guess the big thing is, like, this is for everybody, it's just you need who calls, or who calls the shots here? Is it the GAA or is it the government? Or, in terms of, like, it sounds like they're kind of a bit at loggerheads at the moment. So, and then obviously handball falls into the GAA then, whatever way they come down,
Yeah, and I'd imagine, like, the likes of international tournaments, even, not obviously this year they're gone, but could there be a question mark about them for a time to come? Like, could we be looking at a situation where you go to the States and you have to spend 2 weeks quarantine before you play something?
So the US Nationals, which I was intending on going to in June, they're obviously cancelled now, and there's no date as such, but this talk will be on in, like, September, October time. And like, personally, I'm not sure when to travel in September, October to a lot of places, but to America, where, like, things are probably a bit more lax even than a lot of countries in testing, and, like, in terms of, like, the lockdown has just been very sporadic, if you know what I mean. It's in some states and not in others, and it just seems like a bit of a mess. I think I genuinely don't think I'd go, basically, even if it was on in that kind of, like, late autumn kind of time or whatever. But as in, like, again, not a big issue, I suppose, in terms of, I mean, at the moment, like, for us, like, I mean, I'm probably not going back in the office, like, even until maybe, like, well, definitely until August, September time, but even then they kind of told us it'll probably be only maximum capacity of, like, 25% until 2021. So basically that, like, I mean, so let's say I'm still working at home at that time. I mean, it's fine for me to go home and isolate or whatever, but there's a lot of lads that say they can't do that, or going back to families and stuff, or have to go back to work. And I mean, you can't, like, it's by right, it's two weeks on either side, you know what I mean? So I think it could limit your international travel significantly for handball, in terms of, like, I think those kind of, I mean, it's a real big issue because the World Championships are on next year in Ireland. It's not big, like, obviously they're going to be on in Dublin, so it's fine for us, but I mean, they would have expected a lot of, Americans and also, like, Canadians, Mexicans, Australians to come. Now it's not on until probably October time next year, but, like, I think it's October time, yeah. But, like, whether or not they'll actually travel now, I don't know. I mean, assuming there's a vaccine by that stage, I'm guessing they probably will. But I mean, if there was a delay, or might just make people, like, less likely to kind of risk stuff and all that kind of jazz, you know what I mean? So there is massive kind of repercussions, but we're in a bit of a kind of wait and see game, I guess,
That is Diarmaid Nash there, bringing an end to the first part of this week's Champion Sports Chat podcast. If you are a Clare soccer fan, or maybe even more specifically an Avenue United fan, you'll want to be listening in to part 2, which is coming your way tomorrow evening. It's when we look back on one of the most famous days, perhaps the most famous day in the club's history, and indeed in Clare soccer as well, as they went all the way to the FAI Junior Cup final of 1990. More of that tomorrow night coming your way. Until then, do take